One of the more frustrating things about being a Bulls fan, well, any NBA fan really, because no team is immune to this, is injuries to your team. And injury and a couple of injuries to your key players can completely change the trajectory of your team's season, sometimes even the trajectory of a franchise's future and how they build and rebuild going forward. And for the Bulls, we know this all too well just from the sheer number of injuries we've seen over the course of the past decade, and it shifted the future of the franchise. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. One of the things about this Bulls team is we often talk about the young talent and the potential we have on our roster and how we need to build around this young talent. And I actually agree with this. I do think the young guys we have on our roster have a lot of talent and potential despite some of the ups and downs that we've seen. But what is talent when you can't stay healthy and stay on the court? It was a pretty defeating thing to see when the announcement came out that Lauri Markkanen would be out for 2 to 4 weeks because of the shoulder strain that he sustained against the Magic. And despite the fact that it's a relatively short period of time, only 2 to 4 weeks, it just goes back to the problem that both Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter Jr. continue to struggle in staying on the court despite their young age. Now, I made a video about Wendell Carter Jr. and the concerns about the amount of injuries he's had before turning the age of 22. And what history says about players who suffer from multiple injuries before hitting 22, it's not good. But I think it's also worth noting is the amount of time both Wendell and Lauri have missed in their respective NBA careers. And I think we more or less already knew this information if you've been following the Bulls over the past few seasons, but Casey Johnson tweeted the exact numbers for which each respective player has missed in terms of missed time games by season. And with both players currently out, the number of missed games is going to continue to grow. I've mentioned it before, but I firmly do believe that the Bulls are going to essentially need to choose between Wendell and Lauri. I've mentioned it in prior videos that both of them together, that likely it's not going to work long term because the problem is they essentially play the same position. Wendell obviously is our starting center, but he's undersized for that type of position in the NBA, especially when you're playing against some of the top big men in the league. Now, to Wendell's credit, he's played the role decently well, despite not really being suited for it. He himself has even said he prefers to play power forward, but he's been a solid defender and a rim protector in the paint, and he has had flashes of good offense as well, playing the center. But the Bulls really need a true big man, a true center, a quality big man that can provide elite defense in guarding the paint effectively and bullying other small undersized players. Now with Lauri, he's actually played center decently well this season when Billy Donovan has moved him there to play some minutes with Wendell being out, and even when Wendell was actually in the lineup just to give him some rest. But he's also not designed to be a center either. He's best positioned to be a stretch four. But again, none of this really matters if these guys can't stay healthy. So I think the difficult reality for the new Bulls front office is how do they structure this front court going forward? Whether that means both of these players are not a part of the Bulls' long-term plans or only one of them. Now, I'm almost certain one of these two players will not be on the team next season. And it's not to say that they are busts or not good players. They both have value. Again, a lot of it depends on if they can stay healthy. It's more because there's a fit struggle in the overall roster between these two guys. Lauri is obviously a restricted free agent this summer, so whether that means they choose not to retain him or match any offer he receives, that could be one way that Markkanen doesn't remain on the team. And then, of course, there could be a trade prior to the deadline that could have him move before then. For Wendell, the Bulls did exercise their team option on his rookie scale deal, so he would need to be moved via a trade if a move was to be made. Now, if you asked me, who would I prefer to keep between the two, or move them both for that matter? Well, first off, I don't think both need to be moved. Between both of them, I think it makes more sense to keep Lauri Markkanen, despite the injury struggles. Because before that, he was having himself a solid season and really starting to heat up and make strides right before getting injured in that game against the Magic. And I know Lauri missed some time at the beginning of the season as well, but that wasn't because of an injury. It was due to the fact that he was under the health and safety protocol, which you can't fault him for. Now, there are still a lot of aspects of Lauri's game that needs to be worked on, namely his defense, which has improved, and then also for his size, he really needs to improve upon his rebounding. But he really does fit this Bulls offense well as a stretch big man who can shoot from outside but also be aggressive in attacking the basket. Granted, I would like to see him do more of that though. And if I'm assessing both players together side by side and who do I think a better player as a whole is and who has more potential, I'm going with Lauri Markkanen. That's not to say Wendell isn't a good player. He has a lot of good aspects to his game, but Markkanen, in my opinion, is a better player between the two. Now, I think the question really stems from how much money is Markkanen going to command in free agency, because as I mentioned before, he isn't worth the max and probably not even worth something near the max. Now, with Lauri's most recent injury, this likely is going to draw some concerns from other NBA teams who maybe otherwise would have been interested in making him an offer in free agency, and then that the Bulls would be forced to match. So his overall value on the market could go down a bit in terms for teams if they're concerned about his injury woes. So what the Bulls need to weigh here is, do we keep Lauri, who again I feel is the better player, a better fit, and has more potential, but likely will eat up more of their cap space if they want to retain him in free agency? Or do they stick with Wendell, making him the power forward on his cheaper rookie deal, and use that extra cap space to go after a big man who is going to be on the market? I've said it before, two guys who I feel the Bulls should try to go after in free agency is Andre Drummond. My only concern with him is I think he thinks he's a lot more valuable than he actually is. He's likely going to want a max deal, which I don't think he's worth at all. He's got a great skill set for a big man back in, say, 2010, but in today's NBA, his skills aren't as highly valued as they used to be. Still needed for sure, and for the Bulls, I think he would be a great fit, but not if it hamstrings us in terms of the cap space that we would have building into the future. And then the other guy is Tristan Thompson. Obviously not as quality of a big man as Drummond. He's older, he'll be turning 30 next month, whereas Drummond is only 27, and Thompson has started to regress. So you could likely get him for a much, much lower price as a result. I mean, he's only making $9 million this season, and he will be making the same thing next season before he becomes an unrestricted free agent in 2022. So the Bulls could try and make a move to trade for him with the Celtics, try him out for a year, see how he works on the last year of his contract, and then potentially offer him an extension as a free agent, again for a cheaper deal than what you would otherwise pay Drummond. Now, obviously, there are a number of things the front office needs to sort out in this offseason. I know it's not just isolated to their front court, and I could make a whole separate video on other things that need to be addressed with the backcourt and everyone else on the team. But I do think that this is one of the bigger changes that we'll see this offseason. If nothing else, is one of Wendell or Lauri who will be on the move to another team. If I was a betting man, my guess is the front office will prioritize Lauri Markkanen for the reasons I mentioned above, and they will look to find another true center. And it is possible both of them might be not in Bulls uniforms next season if they're looking to make a big shakeup. My question to you guys, though, is who would you rather keep between Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter Jr., and why? Who do you think is a better long-term fit for this roster? Let me know if there's anything I potentially missed or I'm overlooking, so let me know in the comments. The Bulls are taking on the Pelicans tomorrow, hoping they can bounce back from this loss last night. I'll have a live group chat, as always, both here on the channel and in the Discord, so don't forget to join that as well. As always, guys, be sure to subscribe if you like Daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will catch you in the next one.